Hi, I'm Dave Kale. Welcome to this Christian Business Insights podcast show where my goal is to provide you with practical, actionable ideas to help you create businesses and careers of excellence and at the same time multiply your influence for the kingdom. I have been a Christian in business for over 30 years, and I have personally and contractually consulted with over 500 different sales organizations. So in these podcasts, I combine the lessons that I have learned with an out-of-the-box experience and perspective on Christianity that you will find challenging. And we put that together to provide you with practical insights and ideas that you can use to live better and lead better. Welcome to the journey. Hi, this is Dave. Should you involve your family in your business or your career? Maybe that's not the right question. Maybe the right question is, how should you involve your family in your business or your career? Yeah, so let's dig into this. I believe that this is a biblical precedent. When I was doing the research for the Good Book on Business, which is one of my books, and it is just what it says. It's the good book, the Bible on business. When I was doing the research for that, I discovered how important businesses are in the Bible. Now, they appear throughout the Bible, and God used businesses for a number of his purposes. Things like providing economic security to the servants and employees, and serving as a venue for God to interact with mankind, and as a situation that calls for people to turn to God. If you want to get closer to God, start a business, and you'll discover all the decisions, all the ebbs and flows will just bring you closer to Him. So there's a long list of things that businesses do in the kingdom, and that's why they appear so regularly throughout the kingdom. Most people don't know that because nobody looks for it. If you just begin to look for households, that's the word used in the Bible, households, you'll discover they're all over the Bible. One of the most effective uses of businesses has to do with developing the character of godly leaders. So Moses, Saul, David, Abraham, Paul, even Jesus, just to name a few, were raised in active involvement in their family businesses, in their households. And in that, they learned lessons and acquired knowledge and skills that would serve them and the kingdom throughout their lives. So households, or in other words, family businesses, are throughout the Bible. And one of the things that God uses business for is to develop godly leaders. Family businesses were the venue in which children learned important skills, they gained knowledge, and they developed attitudes. That has not changed. Now, businesses in the Bible employed family. And with a little bit of creativity, yours can too. Now, you're saying, well, I don't have a business, I have a career. Okay, that'll work. Now, before you tune out and note that these practices were in an agrarian society and don't apply to us, hold that thought. Let's think a little more deeply about it. First, a little background to give you some of my personal experience. I was a professional salesperson for the first half of my career, and then I developed a practice or a business helping business-to-business sales organizations sell better. And I found places in both my career as a salesperson as well as the owner of a small business, my sales training and consulting business. I found places in both of those situations to actively engage my kids and my family. In my time as a salesperson, for example, the company provided weekly computerized reports on what was purchased in my territory. However, I wanted to see patterns over time. I was calling on these accounts over and over again, and I wanted to see a pattern of what they were buying or not. So the reports provided accurate information on each week's sales, but no information on patterns. So I paid my teenagers to physically cut the reports apart and then staple multiple weeks for an account on a piece of paper. So they would, week one would be at the top, and then week two of the month would be the next, week three, and so on. So I could look through a single piece of paper and see patterns. And that's what I wanted to do. And that way I could tell if someone started buying something or stopped buying something and so on. So that was a very specific piece of information that I paid my teenagers to do. Now, as well as earning money, and which they did, I think they learned some important things. They learned some things about business, about sales, about the value of information. My territory at that time consisted of 9 days in metropolitan Detroit, and then one day every 2 weeks I would go not into Detroit, but outside, upriver, along the Detroit River to some small accounts in the thumb of Michigan. Now these rural accounts, and this day was a relaxed day. I wouldn't have to fight the traffic or anything in Detroit. And during the summer, I would take one kid with me on each of those more leisurely and laid-back trips to these rural accounts. They would go into the account with me. They'd meet my contacts. And I would have lunch with them somewhere along the road. And I would take I had 5 kids. We raised 5 kids, and each one of them would have a day with Dad on the road. Later, in my days running my sales training consulting business, I found lots of ways to employ the family. So here's one. My wife is a gourmet cook, and I paid her to create varieties of Christmas cookies. And honestly, she would start in October and making Christmas cookies and freezing them. So by the time Christmas came, she'd have hundreds of Christmas cookies of various varieties. And at the time, I was selling hospital supplies to hospitals. So we would package these Christmas cookies up in disposable bedpans and then wrap them in colored cellophane. And I would take them as gifts to the purchasing departments in my accounts. And it was always one of their highlights. They started lobbying 2 weeks before, when are you going to bring those cookies, Dave? And it was a big deal, and I paid my wife to do all that. And, she always attended entertaining events with me. That's one of my rules for entertaining, is you entertain with your spouses always. So my wife was very much a part in those ways of my career as a salesperson. And when it came time, back in my days of sales consulting and sales training, when it came time to compile photocopied letters of recommendation, I had my kids do that, make photocopies, highlight different sections on them, put them together in packets. I mean, that was work that they could do. And they did, and I paid them to do that, various ones as they came up through their teenage years and so on. They helped clean the office, they helped sort literature, they helped file articles, and one of them even took over my website in electronic marketing when they were capable. And I have to believe that some part of their character as adults was formed by the experience of working with their dad on the job. This God-ordained practice enabled the entire family to see what dad or mom does for a living. It generates respect for their parents, and it gives the kids an awareness of what it takes to earn a living. And I think kids who have never had the opportunity to work may not gain that on their own. I think employing your kids in your career or your family gives them an advantage. These days, once a year, I award a $1,500 grant to a Christian college student studying to be a professional salesperson. And we've done this now for 7 or 8 years, and so I get applications from college kids, and I have to sort through them and select the one who I believe has the greatest potential to have an impact for the kingdom in the profession of sales. And I will tell you that those who have worked part-time somewhere, as opposed to those who haven't, those who have worked always kind of come up the pecking order. I think of them more highly than I do those who haven't. And I think that's something that we can give our kids when we employ them in the business. It's a starting point. And I think all my kids gained a healthy work ethic, which has served them well. They learn to complete a task correctly. They learn to get along with co-workers, and they learn to follow directions. They learn that there's rules that they have to follow. They also learned what it was to earn money for their efforts and to realize the self-respect and improved self-image that comes from that. And I think I got that from my father. When I was 12 or 13 years old, I would go with him on Saturday mornings and mop the showroom, file invoices and things like that. I worked for him as a young man. It was the Apostle Paul who said, quote, "The one who is unwilling to work shall not eat." That's in 2 Thessalonians 3:8. The households in the Bible exemplify that concept generations before it was written by teaching their children the value of work in the family's occupation. With a little bit of creativity, Christians of this generation can do the same. Okay, hey, before I go, this is the time of year when we are promoting our Sales Leaders Excellence and Influence course. This is an 8-session course. It combines online work with live Zoom meetings. Very, very practical. As you know, that's sort of my stuff. It is very practical. It is one of the most powerful courses that we teach. We've taught easily over 2,000, maybe even 3,000 sales leaders to this system for managing salespeople. So if you supervise salespeople, this is the course for you. Whether you've been a supervisor for 20 years or you're brand new, you're going to learn some things that will be with you for the rest of your career. They will help you to improve your sales force immediately, and they will enhance your career forever. So I'll put a link in the show notes. We're going to start this in January. So if you're interested, get on the list right now. Okay, and if it's a different, you're listening to this in February, March, then we'll have it again next year. Get yourself on the waiting list. Okay, that's it. We're done. Bye-bye.